Did you ever hear that story of the gentleman investigating the deep state? And then apparently he took his own life with a firearm twice, if you get my drift. Many people think that's evidence that he did not actually take his own life. But the funny thing is, a lot of people will just believe the family. Whenever these stories come out, they're like, no, everything's fine. We really do think it happened. And I got to tell you, it's infinitely more likely that when you have someone uncovering a plot, a conspiracy, that someone takes them. Like, someone kills them. You know what I mean? And then goes to the family member and says, here's money, shut up, or else. I think that's substantially more likely. Well, Netflix has a new special coming out about the Octopus murders. Ooh, mystery deepens in Ryder's death. Conspiracy prober's suicide draws another look. An upcoming documentary series is set to unravel the gruesome true story of an investigative journalist found dead in a bathtub after pursuing a conspiracy group. Danny Casolaro's lifeless body was discovered by a housekeeper at a motel in Martinsburg, West Virginia in August 1991. You knew. You knew I couldn't walk away from this one. Uh-oh. Martinsburg. That's where we are. I love it. Not the story. It's just the craziness of it. The 44-year-old had died from a loss of blood after suffering multiple slash wounds to his wrists inflicted by a very sharp-bladed object, and local authorities quickly ruled it a suicide. But his family and friends have long insisted that he'd been murdered for investigating a conspiracy group he called the Octopus. The Octopus murders, they call it on Netflix. The chilling case began when Danny started investigating a dispute between the Department of Justice and a technology company called Inslaw. The clash appeared to be over intellectual property rights, but it soon seemed that it had a much more sinister underbelly. Following months of research, Danny is said to have stumbled into a web of stolen government spy software, a string of unsolved murders, and some of the biggest political scandals of the 20th century, according to Netflix. I got to tell you, my friends, they say that the Pulitzer Prize is the greatest honor and award in journalism. But everyone else knows that a CIA assassination is the actual journalism prize. No, but I'll be real with you guys. Look. Let's say that there's an actual security threat to the United States, and we're talking like Cold War era right now, right? If there's a journalist, and I pose a serious question to you guys. Let's say that the U.S. is trying to extract a few informants and agents from, I don't know, it's a Soviet state, right? And information gets out that could result in this operation being compromised and the death of several people. A journalist has the story and says, the American people must know. What do you? What do you do? I'm not going to pretend like there's easy answers here, because I'll tell you this. The security apparatus of this country is not going to allow this action to be compromised because it would result in deaths, and it could further compromise security of the country. Understand that life is not just black and white. It's not just like these journalists that are working to uncover these stories are not without potential calamities should their reporting happen. That being said, often I really doubt that's the case. Because typically these journalists try to work with source and say we want to redact anything that could result in harm or death. Usually, and most of the time, these journalists are not doing anything that is going to compromise national security to an extreme degree. And when it came to, say, Julian Assange, who's a journalist, by the way, he actually said he'll work with the United States completely to go through these to make sure they redact everything. That way, what the U.S. is doing gets out, but nothing that would actually cause substantial harm. The question then becomes, and I know it's a tough one. Libertarians are all screaming saying, no, never. But here's the tough spot. It is not so simple to say. Even if, Julian Assange exposes a lot that the U.S. government was doing, Edward Snowden as well. And this compromises the plans of people who work in intelligence, and they fear it will make their ability to run security, that it'll make it harder. Giving the enemy an opportunity to understand our tactics and plans is going to be a disaster. That's a harsh reality. I don't think we're supposed to be ruled by an elite cabal that does whatever they want and no one can do anything about it. So I commend the journalists who seek to report on it. But I want to point out the nuance there. there's a perspective to consider, and you need to understand that so you can know the motives. They say the writer believed he had uncovered a hidden organization, which he branded as the Octopus, made up of 8 ex-government officials. The excerpts purporting to be from Danny's research shared in the new trailer for the docuseries asserted, these 8 men, they're no longer government officials, but their tentacles can reach into any part of government in almost any country. The journalist thought the conspiracy had all started with Promise, a computer program which sources in the series claimed allegedly allowed the CIA to spy on the intelligence agencies that bought it. Wow. Crazy. And honestly, really easy to do these days. Must have been a lot easier back then. It seemed the program was engulfed in shocking speculation, including that everyone who worked on it are dead. There were a string of suspicious deaths seemingly linked, including 3 men who were fatally shot, and another who had a wire running from around his neck to his ankles. Danny became obsessed with bringing the entirety of the story to light, but never got the chance to finish the investigation. In the summer of 1991, he headed out to the motel, expecting to interview a key source for the story, but would never make it back. His death was ruled a suicide, but many believe that his wounds were far from self-inflicted, a sentiment echoed by those who feature in the Netflix upcoming series. It just didn't sit right. In my mind, I'm thinking, they killed him, one commenter urged. Look at this. The writer believed he uncovered a hidden organization called the Octopus. Maybe the Octopus murders. In the book that Danny was writing, he starts looking into these powerful people and realizes there's something much bigger going on. Most of us were convinced he had been hurt for him covering this story. A woman added. Another man explained, I told him not to talk to certain people, not to raise certain issues. The trailer dramatically concludes with a warning, apparently issued to the documentary makers themselves, which states, if you think for a minute that you're going to go expose somebody, you're going to get yourself killed. You will. It's true. And it happens. Shane Cashman, author of the Tales from the Inverted World books. We have 2 of them. We're in the past year or so, we've been working on setting up this live show, which the studio is now almost complete. Shane Cashman went down to investigate the lost Confederate gold from the Civil War, which has been a topic of treasure hunters' dreams for a long time. It's wild. This is reality. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars or more. You're talking about, and not just with that story, with any one of these stories, Octopus murders, people's lives being threatened and what they're willing to do to make sure you can't stop them. In the course of his reporting, someone actually sent Shane a death threat, warning him that if he didn't stop trying to find this gold, something bad would happen. And they were rather explicit, in fact, as to what would happen. Fortunately, nothing happened. The story concluded, and Shane has since made it back and moved on. But I think people need to understand the reality of what people are willing to kill for. I see stories every day. A woman gets shot and killed in San Francisco by an illegal immigrant for no reason. I see a story of a guy is standing in an ATM and he gets stabbed several times for a couple $100. We know it's all real. Do you really think that powerful entities, either former government, current government, corporations, or otherwise, would allow a journalist to expose their operation? Laughable. Now, often, some people won't cross that line. I think mostly they don't. But you think about the willingness to kill someone for nothing, for a couple $100. Then you got to understand what someone's willing to kill for if you're talking about a larger conspiracy organization. And the terrifying reality that, unfortunately, for most people, it's actually really easy to do. A simple mugging, and that's it. And no one will know the answer. Imagine you are a young, staffer for a corporation, and you find out your corporation has been doing something wrong. So you download a series of emails and send them off to a news organization. Do you think they would just let that slide? Perhaps one day when you're walking home from work, you get mugged. And that's the end of it. Mugged. A robbery. Perpetrators never caught. A botched robbery. Oh, they'll find you with your belongings still on you, and they'll say it was just a botched robbery. That's all. Somebody wanted his stuff and ran off without taking it. Perhaps. If you are getting in the way of very powerful people, they will not hesitate. I think the average person, again, corporations and government, they don't do these things. But as long as you understand that you can Google it right now. I'll tell you a story. At MGM National Harbor, which is just south of D.C., there was a guy who was playing. It's a National Harbor is like a big, it's like a pier, and there's boats, and there's a Ferris wheel, and there's restaurants, and there's also a casino called MGM National Harbor. National Harbor is the place. MGM National Harbor is the casino at National Harbor. Google this story and check this one out. A guy apparently had been playing blackjack or something and won like 60 grand. Some woman was all macking on him, and he's like, "Come up to my room, girl." And so they did. Once they got inside, she signaled to her compatriots and opened the door, allowing them in. They ordered him to open his safe to give him the money. And as they were going through the safe, he ran for it. They chased him out of the room and put a bullet in his back with, I believe it was an AR-15. Bleeding profusely, he climbed down some 20-odd flights of stairs to make it down screaming for help. What these people are willing to do and the risks they're willing to take. These were just run-of-the-mill thugs who were trying to rob a guy who had been flaunting money, flashing it around. Don't do that. When you go to some of these casinos, they'll offer you an escort if you got a certain amount of money. So you have to wonder, what is the government willing to do? I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.